So, getting into this idea of behind closed doors and part three of today's episode. And if you haven't listened to the other two parts, then I encourage you to go back and, after you listen to this podcast episode, because we had really great conversations around what it actually takes, like what your boss is saying versus what they're actually doing, and how you can begin to do more of what they're doing versus what they're saying. And then in last week's episode, we had a really fantastic conversation about women in leadership and how some women's leadership programs are not actually leading women in a way that is really helpful and beneficial to their own career success. And then today's episode, I'm talking about why promotions matter and also, quite frankly, why they don't matter. So, one thing that, nobody's going to tell you, literally, because this is behind closed doors, nobody's going to tell you that when you finally get your promotion, when you finally get that huge pay raise, well, the pay raise is actually, you do feel it, right? But when you finally get that promotion, right, that you're not going to care, right? And this is really funny, but one of the greatest compliments that I get from my clients is that they got their promotion and they were like, what's next?" Can you imagine? You've been wanting this promotion or this title, or you've been trying to become a vice president for a long time. Or let's say you're on the job search and you really want a new role and you need to start working as soon as possible. When you get that title, you're if you do it the way that I teach, the actual outcome is gonna be, what's next?" Right? Like, let that sink in. Does that feel disappointing to you? Does that feel a little bit frustrating? Maybe it's just confusing, like, how is that possible? If you're listening to this and you're like, "Yeah, exactly, that's exactly how I felt," then you know what I'm talking about. So essentially, your boss's boss want you to believe that your promotion is literally everything that matters. Okay? That your promotion is literally like everything that matters. Like, don't worry about the promotion, or when the promotion comes, it's going to come. Like, the promotion's great, or like whatever noise is coming out of their mouth is irrelevant. But essentially, what they're saying to you is, I will reward you, or if you do this work, you will be rewarded. Right. And again, bonuses, higher pay increases, those are all incredibly valuable. And I would not say that anybody balks at that. Right. Like, that's huge. But for a lot of women who are working and they're operating in that authentically powerful way, and they're really showing up like one or two levels ahead all the time, essentially what a promotion does for them is level set what they were already doing. And so I want you to kind of think about this, because I think it's funny, and it also will help direct you and guide you if you know that your next promotion is just the beginning of something even bigger than what you're supposed to be able to accomplish. This is incredibly motivating for my clients because, when we get so fixated on this, like, really kind of small goal, like, imagine if my client was like senior director was the end all be all, and she was like, "Oh my God, I finally got promoted to senior director." And for those of you who have been trying to get promoted to senior director for a long time, I'm not making fun of you, but I want you to see the silliness of this, which you probably already see. Like, at the end of the day, at the end of our life, by the time we get to retirement, we're not going to be like, "I finally made it to senior director and that was my life's calling." No, it's about the impact that you're able to make. Okay. And so there is this idea that promotions don't really matter. Now, I'm going to get into why promotions really matter. Okay. So behind the scenes is the words that are coming out of your boss's mouth is that, we'll get your title, you'll get your pay increase, you'll get that promotion, and then it'll all be worth it. And then you're sort of like, I'm kind of reading the writing on the wall. I don't think anything really changes. But here's the place where the promotions do actually matter. And this, again, is also what they're not going to tell you is that if let's say you're not at that vice president level, or let's say that you're not at that C suite level, and you're not going to be seen in the same way as you are at the director level, right? Like, let's say you reach out to a customer, let's say you're trying to build your team, you're trying to get more money to grow, right? You're trying to be included in these management team conversations based strictly on your title. You're not going to be included, right? A lot of women find themselves not even being able to schedule meetings with higher level executives because they don't have the title. But for the most part, customers, everybody, like hierarchy, you might have that peer that looks at you sideways whenever you reach out to them. It's because of your title, right? You can have the most authority in the world. You can be working on the biggest, most high profile project, but people aren't going to call you back unless you're actually at the C suite, unless you're actually reporting directly to the CEO, whatever that might be, that gives you that level of authority. And so in these particular cases, title does matter. Right. And so, sometimes people will tell you this. They'll be like, well, this room is only for vice presidents. And so then you're like, "Rah, rah." So even though I'm working on the highest profile project at the company, I can't even go to this meeting because I'm not a VP. Right. And so I want you to become a VP. I want your title to matter so that you can actually be included in those conversations. Right. Like from the get go. And so this is the place where titles really do matter. And I think it's very important as you're having promotion conversations that you still have conversations about title, but you also don't make a title like show your own personal value. Like you don't make it mean anything about yourself, if this makes sense. Okay. I hope you're following along because even just knowing this as you continue to move forward on your career development, hopefully is going to motivate you to go for more, bigger, like I said, most of the time when my clients are getting promoted, they're already operating like two levels above themselves, and so it just is this like kind of like, well, finally, right? I have women all the time, like even in my leadership table mastermind, we only have one criteria to be inside of the leadership table mastermind, and that is that idea that you are personally, authentically powerful. And what makes an authentically powerful woman is a woman who takes ownership of her career path, who is having those higher level conversations, who is willing to push the envelope. But also, just as I said, we're having those deeper level conversations where we're saying, hey, this year I redefined my goals. But when you're redefining your goals and you're saying, hey, I just want to make a bigger impact at my next role, or I want to make a bigger impact in my current role, that's also operating from that place that I deserve a promotion. I need the title and the pay that matches that impact, and you're willing to ask for it, right? So that's the criteria of the leadership table mastermind anyway. That's the definition of an authentically powerful woman is that we're being very realistic and we're understanding that titles matter and they also don't matter at all at the end of the day. Who cares if you made it to senior director? You want to make sure that as you're going through your career journey that you're kind of like weighing both sides, pros and cons, and like what is it that I'm asking for at this time? What is it I'm asking for at this time? It's a lot easier if you have a coach in your back pocket like me, but if you don't have one, you have this podcast and just start to begin to ask yourself these questions. Now, the other thing that I want to point out is as you begin to get promoted, as you begin to get into those higher level positions, it doesn't always equal impact, right? So I have women inside of the mastermind who are operating at the C suite, who have C suite level titles and are still being pushed out, right? Who are still being talked over at meetings, who are still being not included in conversations. And so if you think title is the only thing that matters and that once you get the title, then you'll have the impact, nuh-uh. You have to figure out how to include yourself at all levels. You have to figure out and know beyond a shadow of doubt that your voice matters, that it needs to be included in these conversations. And then you have to be able to tweak what it is that you're saying and doing accordingly so that you continue to manage your career. This is also what it means to maximize your career, to get the most out of your career. It's not the most hours, it could definitely be the most pay. It could definitely be the most title, but ultimately it's the most impact, right? It's the most influence because that is your birthright. You deserve to be in that room. Why not you? We need your voice at the leadership table. And when you begin to believe that, hey, I'm going to raise my hand for this title. And I also know that when I get this title, that it's not the end all be all. And I'm always growing and I'm always evolving and I'm always moving and challenging myself to get to that next level, next level, next level, and beyond.